Good afternoon to you from wherever you are watching us. It is Thursday, 12th day of September 2019. Yet another time when we link up with members of the National Assembly as they engage in matters legislation. Thursday afternoon will be their fourth sitting. Members of the National Assembly having resumed legislative business on Tuesday this week after a short break. And so this afternoon, quite a number of pending issues before the House. There are a number of decisions to be made as regards the direction that will be taken by a number of motions and bills. Before that, a procedural motion to be moved by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, and this speaks to the extension of the period for consideration of a specified public petition. And in this case, it is a petition regarding funding of the lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, otherwise known as LGBTQI agenda by foreign organizations in the country by a further period of 90 days with effect from August 20th, 2019. This particular petition was tabled in Parliament by nominated Member of Parliament Jennifer Shamala on behalf of faith-based organizations and religious institutions which were not specified in the petition, but which, however, are seeking to know specifically from the CEO of the NGO Coordination Board the status and annual funding of the LGBTQI agenda in Kenya. A motion on a report of the Committee of the Whole House that considered Senate amendments to the Copyright Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of the year 2017, will be coming up for consideration as pertaining to whether or not it shall be approved by the House this afternoon. Also to be put is a question considering another motion on a report of the whole House that's considered Senate amendments to the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of the year 2018, as well as the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of the year 2019. Yet another report of the Public Finance Management, otherwise known as Biashara Kenya Fund Regulations 2019, and three other related sets of regulations will also know its fate this afternoon when the question is put. And of course, this is a report that seeks to annul in entirety the Public Finance Management Biashara Kenya Fund Regulations of 2019, the Public Finance Management Wezo Fund Revocation Regulations 2019, the Public Finance Management Women Enterprise Fund Revocation Regulations 2019, and the Public Finance Management Youth Enterprise Development Fund Revocation Regulations 2019. Also expected this afternoon, consideration by the National Assembly of the mediated version of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59, that speaks to allocations that will be made by the national government to county governments. Yesterday, senators did approve the figure of 316 billion to be disbursed to counties after approving this mediated version, and a similar action is expected this afternoon from members of the National Assembly. Also expected questions from members. You do remember that question time is now a feature in the order of business in the National Assembly. And so one of those questions will be from the Member of Parliament, Busia County, Honorable Florence Mutua. Her question is to the Cabinet Secretary for Health, and it regards measures undertaken to ensure the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030, as adopted by the Third United Nations World Conference in Sendai, Japan in March 2015, is implemented. And she notes that the recent Cabinet Secretary deployment did not give prominence to existing structures of the Division of Health Emergencies and Disaster Risk Management. It is a live broadcast brought to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. At 32 minutes past 2 p.m., we are set to begin the proceedings. My name is Vereso Mwanga. On behalf of the entire crew, I welcome you to sit back and participate by way of viewership in this afternoon session. Good afternoon.
Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests are connected to our church. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honourable members, the communication available will come a little later because of the business. It refers to a specific business to be considered. Let's proceed in the next order.
Three.
Honourable members, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 41, I wish to report to the House that I have received messages from the Senate regarding its decision on the following bills. 1, the Local Content Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2018. Number 2, the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 32 of 2018. The first message relates to passage of Local Content Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2018, which reads and seeks to provide for a framework to facilitate the local ownership, control, and financing of activities connected with the exploitation of gas, oil, and petroleum mineral resources to increase the local value capture along the value chain in the exploration of gas, oil, and other petroleum mineral resources. The second message is in respect to the passage of the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 32 of 2018, seeking to amend the Mental Health Act to realign the membership of the Kenyan Mental Health Board to impose an obligation on each level of government and to address the issue of accessibility to mental health services, including care, treatment, and rehabilitation of persons with mental illness. Honourable members, the message is read in part that the Senate considered and passed the said bills with amendments on Wednesday, 24th July 2019, and now seeks the concurrence of the National Assembly. Standing Order number 143, subsection 1, paragraph A, requires the Speaker to cause a bill received from the Senate to be read a first time upon conference of a message from the Senate. Accordingly, I direct that the bills be read for the first time during the next sitting of this House. Honourable Member, standing under 143 clause 2, further provides, and I quote, following first reading, the Speaker shall within reasonable time pronounce his or her opinion contemplated under Article 114 clause 2 of the Constitution, close the quotes. The opinion envisioned under standing under 143.2 is a pronouncement by the Speaker as to whether a bill originating in the Senate is a money bill in terms of Article 114 of the Constitution. In this regard, I direct that after first reading, the two bills be referred to the Parliamentary Budget Office to offer advice that will enable the Speaker to form the opinion contemplated under standing under 143.2. Thereafter, I shall guide the House accordingly on how to proceed with the consideration of the two bills. I thank you.
Order number 4, petitions.
The Honorable Josephat Kabeabea, member for Tigania East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon, I rise to present a petition by the residents of Tigania East constituency regarding unlawful acquisition of ancestral land by the Kenyan Defense Forces School of Artillery, which is also called the 78th Battalion.
Members cannot follow what you are saying. Raise up your voice.
Okay. Thank you, Speaker. I'm saying I rise this afternoon to present a petition on behalf of the residents of Tigania East constituency regarding unlawful occupation of ancestral land by the Kenyan Defense Forces School of Artillery, the 78th Battalion. And it goes, I, the undersigned, on behalf of concerned residents of Tigania East constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following. That the petitioners have lived on their ancestral land in Tigania East constituency for years. And that in 1977, the then county councils of Isiolo, Samburu, and Turkana jointly hived off from the community land hundreds of acres and allocated it to the Armed Forces School of Artillery through Gazette Notice number 3210 of 31st October 1977 for purposes of expansion. And that in 2015, the Kenyan Defense Forces encroached on encroached and annexed more land belonging to residents of Tigania East constituency and claimed ownership of approximately 20,000 acres in excess of what was allocated by county councils of Isiolo, Samburu, and Turkana. But the residents later learned with the shock that the Kenyan Defense Forces had been hurriedly issued with an allotment letter reference 189-464 /11 of 12th June 2018 in respect of the 20,000 acres belonging to the people. That the encroachment resulted in displacement of more than 40,000 people, closure of 9 schools, 2 institutions offering special assistance to the vulnerable individuals in community, 3 administration police camps, 1 dispensary, and 13 boreholes used for irrigation by the community. Number 6, that officers from the Kenyan Defense Forces forcibly assessed the land, demolished fences and the structures, and evicted residents from the said land, rendering them homeless and condemning them to nomadic lifestyle. That the displacement of people has increased animosity between the displaced residents and the soldiers who have occupied their land. That the evictions have disrupted the residents' life, rendering them homeless and cut them off basic social amenities, including access to education by their children. That attempts by petitioners to amicably resolve the matter at the grassroots level through consultative meetings with the Kenyan Defense Forces have not been successful. And that the matter raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law or any other legal or constitutional body. And therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee of Lands, that inquires into the circumstances under which the Kenyan Defense Forces annexed an extra 20,000 acres of land belonging to residents in excess of what was allocated to it by the county councils of Isiolo, Samburu, and Turkana in 1977, and the issuance thereof of an allotment letter on 12th June 2018 in respect of the 20 acres of land. The petitioners also pray that the committee intervenes through the Ministry of Land and other relevant government agencies to cause survey of the land so as to clearly demarcate the portion of land that rightfully belongs to residents and that which was allocated to the Kenyan Defense Forces by the county councils of Isiolo, Samburu, and Turkana in 1977. And also the petitioners pray that the committee makes any other recommendations it deems fit in circumstances of the petitioners. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know, you have taken so long reading that petition until now everybody is lost direction. Anyhow, the petition is referred to the relevant committee that you have directed to consider it. The next petition is by the Honorable Gladys Boschole. Your petition.
Honorable Speaker, I, the undersigned, on behalf of the representatives of Biodiversity, Biosafety Association of Kenya, BIBA, the Kenya Organic Agriculture Network, KONA, Resources-Oriented Development Initiative, RODI Kenya, and Route to Food Initiative, draw the attention of this House to the following: that there has been an increase in the prevalence of chemical pesticides in Kenya, which poses a risk to human health and harmful effects to the environment. That the volume of imported insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides has more than doubled in the 4 years, from 6,400 tons in 2015 to 15,600 tons in 2018, with a growth rate of 144%. That despite this, there is no data available concerning the use of pesticides, concentration of pesticides in water, soil, and food, and their related impacts. that there are products on the Kenyan market which are certainly classified as carcinogenic, 24 products in total, mutagenic, 24 products, endocrine disruptor, 35 products, neurotoxic products, 140 of them, and many of which show clear effects on reproduction, toxicity, and those are 262 products, many of which have been banned in Europe and the United Kingdom and the USA. That this is worrying because the increase in the pesticide use has not been accompanied with the necessary safeguards to control how they are applied and how they are used. That during the pesticides registration process in Kenya, mainly the purity and the efficacy of the product is tested. Data on human and environmental health under the local conditions are scarcely taken into consideration. The Pesticide Control Product Act, Cap 346 of the laws of Kenya does not state environmental and or human health as a possible concern during the registration process. That the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, KEFIS, has been contravening Section 15 of the Pest Control Product Act by failing to publish available information on the actual levels of pesticide in food samples collected and putting in place regular monitoring system. That there are no epidemiological health studies related to pesticide exposure on our health and their impact to the environment. That the Pest Control Products Board, PCPB, has not been following the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization International Code of Conduct in pesticide management. That efforts have been made to address the matter with the relevant authorities to no avail. That the matters in respect of which this petition are raised are not pending before any court of law or constitutional legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Health, 1, causes the executive to order for an immediate ban of all products on the Kenyan market classified as carcinogenic, mutagenic, endocrine disruptors, neurotoxic, and many of which show clear effects to the reproduction toxicity. 2, causes the government to withdraw all harmful toxic pesticides in Kenya's market based on the active ingredients used that pose serious health risks to Kenyans and develops and implements a strategy to remove such harmful pesticides from the market, recognizing that it can take several years for the products to be completely unavailable through the local shops and dealers. That ensures that the government establishes and strengthens monitoring systems on the use of the pesticide through increased data collection on food samples in the market and the level of pesticides contained. Causes an amendment to the Pest Control Products Law to include a list of pesticides that have been withdrawn from the market based on the serious health risks posed to Kenyans, and to make it mandatory for the Pest Control Products Board, PCPB, to assess data on the environmental and human health impact during the registrations and re-registration process of the products. And finally, makes any other order that it deems fit in the circumstances of this petition. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Sorry, honour members, as you can see, it is very difficult. I want to encourage as many of you as possible to avoid coming to consult me when during debates, because it forces me to have to not to hear what has been what. There are some members who want to comment. But if you want to comment, you must show your. If you have no card, how do you comment? No, I think the best thing is that let me refer the petition to the committee. When the committee does its report, then there will be room for people to discuss, seek further information, clarifications, and comments, so that we can move to the next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority party. Majority whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Leader of Majority, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 12th, 2019, afternoon sitting. 1, the reports of the Auditor General and the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2018 and certificates therein. A Business Registration Service, Kaimosi Friends University College, Circle Society Regulatory Authority, National Hospital Insurance Fund, Kenya School of Government, Institute of Human Resource Management, Communication Authority of Kenya, and National Cereals and Produce Board. 2, Quarterly Economic and Budgetary Review Report, 4th quarter for the financial year 2018-2019 from the National Treasury and Planning. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Chairman, Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 12th, 2019. Report on the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee on its consideration of the representation of special interest groups, Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 52 of 2019. I thank you.
Chairman, Select Committee on the National Government Constituency Development Fund.
Mr. Speaker, I beg you to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 12, 2019. That is the report on the Select Committee on the National Government Constituency Development Fund on its consideration of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Amendment Bill 2019. Now, just as a quick item, Mr. Speaker, this report, we had concluded it. And I do not want to revisit the sentiments expressed by the House yesterday, but allow me, Mr. Speaker, to announce to members that from next week, they will be able to have the schedule or the official report to their fund managers to be able to put proposals and the budget for the current financial year. And the final figure, or the actual figure this time, is 137,667,724. So from that, Mr. Speaker, you can see from the time we came here, the budget was 89 million. It went to 109. Now this time is 137. Now that is why, Mr. Speaker, we can afford to ignore the mumbling and the fumbling of yesterday.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honourable members, the first question is by the member for Busia County, Honourable Mutua Florence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is question 383 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Health. The question reads, what measure has the Ministry of Health undertaken to ensure that the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, as adopted by the 3rd United Nations World Conference in Sendai, Japan, in March 2015, is implemented, noting that the recent Cabinet Secretary deployment did not give prominence to existing structures of the Division of Health, Emergency and Disaster Risk Management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Question to be responded to before the Committee on Health. Next question by the member for Bere North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 391 of 2019, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the tarmacking of Keretile...
Order members. Those of you who are desirous of, because today is Thursday, of beginning the usual weekend antiques, please just do it outside there quickly, quietly. Let us be able to transact business. Consort in lower tones, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the tarmacking of Keretile Chicago Road C397 are stored since 2016? Number 2, could the ministry consider engaging a new contractor as a previous contractor has failed to meet its contractual obligations? Number 3, Mr. Speaker, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the road is completed as soon as possible, considering that it is an important road serving the people of Bere North and Bere South constituencies? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Mwingi West, the Honorable Charles Ngona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to ask, pursuant to the provision of standing orders number 42A5, I would like to ask the following question to the Teachers Service Commission. Question number 1, could the Commission explain the criteria used in the recruitment and promotions of teachers? Number 2, how many teachers have been recruited and promoted in Kitui County in the last 2 years, and especially Mwingi West? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Question will be responded to before the committee. Oh, gosh. The Committee on Education and Research. Next question is by the member for Matayos, the Honorable Geoffrey Makoha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 393 to the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection. 1, what is the procedure for issuance of tax exemption certificates for persons living with disabilities? 2, why is the procedure of acquiring and renewing the certificates lengthy and tedious? And 3, could the Cabinet Secretary consider renewing or doing away with the requirement for renewal of the said certificates? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honour members, let me not do administrative work from the chair here. It's too much. It's not possible. Those of you who have issues that you have written, why don't you just deliver them in my office? I didn't know there's no way I can leave the office without attending to anything that has been brought to me by a member. I will express some opinion one way or other and make a decision. So that I don't have to do a lot of administrative work from here, that I wrote a letter, I don't know. Then they just came in when I was also coming in. Now we have to go and pick them, and I come and start looking through them here. Please, just for the convenience of the House, so that I'm also able to follow what it is that members are saying. I think it's a fair request. Please, if you have something you want my attention, and particularly those ones which are in writing, yes, the whips and the leaders are at liberty because there are issues that happen in the chamber. Thank you, Honorable Junet, for that reminder. It is indeed, it is true, but there are things that will be happening in the House, in the chamber, which require consultation. But those ones which require, where you have written letters, and some of you write very long and widening letters. But for me to be able to address them, I can only do it when I'm also in the office, not when I'm also supposed to be listening. I'm saying this because, sorry, the member for Mwingi West, your question required a written answer. That's what I'm informed. So you need a written answer from the Teacher Service Commission. So it is not referred to the Committee on Education and Research. Sorry. The answer should also be accordingly corrected. It's just because of this excessive administrative work. The question by the Honorable Odanga is to be responded to before the Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. The last question by the member for Igembe South is deferred at his request. So that concludes the issue about questions, but there is an issue about statements. The Honorable Pukose, your request for a statement has just been brought to me because you brought it. It was handed on, it was brought to my office when we were saying prayers here. So that's why it was not indicated. Okay. But you may proceed. I've seen it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and it's an honor, Honorable Speaker, to give me an opportunity to read this statement. Honorable Speaker, this is a statement on forceful evictions of residents of Molem area and killing of a minor, Daisy Cherop, from St. Andrew's Nursery School by police in Endebess constituency yesterday, 11 September 2019. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding forceful evictions of residents of Molem area, Endebess constituency, and killing of a nursery school child named Daisy Cherop, aged 5 years, on 11 September 2019. Honorable Speaker, a contingent of police officers led by the sub-county police commandant in Yonman Way forcefully evicted residents of Molem area in Endebess constituency, destroying properties, crops, and reserved foods in stores worth millions of monies, despite a court order issued by Justice Mwangi Njoroge of Kitale Environment and Land Court on 30th July 2019, stopping any evictions until the matter is resolved. This has caused unbearable pain, hunger, lack of housing, and landlessness for the residents of the said area. Honorable Speaker, further during the forceful evictions, the family of Dan Kipto and Sheila Jepkemoi, and this is a grandson to Chinjakuku, lost their loved daughter, a minor, a nursery school child named Daisy Cherop, aged 5 years, from St. Andrew's Nursery School, who was shot and lost alive as a result of this mayhem. The family is in anguish for the loss of their beloved daughter. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to convey my heartfelt condolence to the family and the constituency in general. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. 1, the actions being taken against the sub-county police commandant for the unlawful and forceful evictions of residents of Molem area, Endebess constituency, despite a court order being issued against evictions of residents. 2, actions undertaken to ensure that investigations leading to the shooting and killing of the minor, the late Daisy Cherop, are carried out and action being taken against the police officer who shot and killed the said child. And 3, what measures are in place to ensure court orders are respected and in the case of eviction, be done in a humane and orderly manner in the country, including not used as punishment of local residents. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Chair, National Security. Vice Chair. Your statement, the request is referred then to the Leader of the Majority Party. Leader of Majority Party, both your chairperson, both the chairperson and the vice are absent. So maybe then the responsibility will fall on the shoulders of the Leader of Majority.
Chair, I will undertake that matter and report to the House next Tuesday.
Very well. Honourable members, allow me to recognize the presence of students from the following institutions who are in the public gallery: St. Peter's Dumberi H School, Kiambu Town, Kiambu County, and those from St. Ulrich Lama H School, Subukia Constituency, Nakuru County. They are welcome to observe proceedings in the House. Next, Leader of Majority.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's true, the power of a woman and more so the power of Honorable Rehema Jaldeza. She is a very unique member of parliament and the Secretary General of Pastoralist Parliamentary Group. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2a, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee following a meeting held on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at the rise of the House. Honorable Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to officially welcome members back from the long recess. I am sure we are all energized, re-energized, and ready to execute the business set out for this third part and the final part of the session this year. The House Business Committee, Mr. Speaker, has scheduled consideration of the following bills in the Committee of the Whole House on Tuesday next week. Number 1, the Presidential Reservation to the Parliamentary Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2018, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2019, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2019. Honorable Speaker, also being given consideration for second reading are the following bills, should we not conclude them today. The Petition to County Assemblies Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2018, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, and the County Government Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2018. Honorable Speaker, will also consider sessional paper number 1 of 2019 on the policy framework for reforming education and training for sustainable development in Kenya, and the report of the Defense and Foreign Relations on the agreement between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the government of the Italian Republic on the Luigi Broglio Malindi Space Center known as San Marco, should we not conclude that business today? Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, Section 5 and 6, I wish to convey that the following Cabinet Secretaries will appear before committees next week. The Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Natural Resources will appear before the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on Tuesday, September 17, 2019, to answer the following. Question number 364 of 2019 from Honorable Simon Kangara, MP, and question number 327 of 2019 from Honorable Muturi Kigano. Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Public Works and Housing will appear before the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on Thursday, September 19th, to answer the following questions. Question number 348 from Honorable Sarah Korere. Question number 369 from Honorable Paul Nzengu. Question number 363 from Honorable Beatrice Adagala. Question number 371 from Honorable Sabina Chege. And question number 1373 from Honorable Sharif Athman Ali. And question number 390 from Honorable Danita Gatti. Finally, the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Culture, and Tourism will appear before the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture, and Tourism on Tuesday, September 17th, 2019, to answer questions to number 177 from the Honorable James Mugo. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, 17 September 2019, at the rise of the House to schedule business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, extension of the period for consideration of a specified public petition.
Chair, Just Legal Affairs. Honorable Jeptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 2272, Committal of Petitions, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the public petition before the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs regarding the funding of the lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, intersex, LGBTQI agenda by foreign organizations in Kenya by a further period of 90 days with effect from 20th August 2019. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 227, the petition regarding the funding of lesbians, gays, transgender, and intersex agenda by foreign organizations in Kenya by Honorable Shamala, this was committed to the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs for consideration and report to the House within 60 days in line with the provisions of Standing Order number 22. Mr. Speaker, while considering the petition, the committee resolved to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Non-Governmental Organization Coordination Board on the status and the annual funding of LGBTQI agenda in the Religious Council of Kenya, IRCK, and Kenya Law Society, among others, to seek their views regarding the LGBTQI agenda. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to report to the House that the committee had the petitioner, that is Honorable Shamala, on 8th of August 2019. And Mr. Speaker, due to exigencies of the mandate of the committee, Mr. Speaker, we've had several public participation on a number of constitutional amendment bills. Even during the recess, we were able, and given that we have to operate within the time stipulated in the calendar of the House, the committee was unable to hear from the said stakeholders within the time prescribed. And Mr. Speaker, the matters raised in the petition are really matters of great public concern. They are matters that, Mr. Speaker, there is need for us to listen to the Kenyan people, to the institutions I've talked about, so that, Mr. Speaker, we go to the root cause of what is going on in the funding of, Mr. Speaker, what you have said. So, Mr. Speaker, we are requesting that Standing Order number 256A2 provides that the authority of the House to extend the period may be exercised only in exceptional circumstances to be permitted by the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is because of this reason that we want to seek your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, and request that, Mr. Speaker, you give us another 90 days to enable the committee, Mr. Speaker, receive comments, views from these institutions we have mentioned, and also, Mr. Speaker, also listen to the public, because the matters raised, as I've said, Mr. Speaker, are of public concern and important that we obtain the views of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that in the religious organizations, Mr. Speaker, the faith-based organizations, Mr. Speaker, are very concerned. And, Mr. Speaker, we seek to request for more time to enable the committee do more participation from the institutions and the public. Mr. Speaker, I want to request, and Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Munene, Mr. Speaker, to second.
Who is seconding you? Honorable Ambogo?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I second.
Remember, I'm assuming that if we are in the House, we would know where we are, so that then I can propose the question. I must propose the question. Yes, including the member for Igembe North. You know, you can go and talk to the Honorable Kisang from there, yes. It's easier. Member for Nairobi, you can take a seat behind there. Including the Honorable Sosion. If you can also take a seat and talk. The Honorable Peter Kaluma is available always. Honorable members, before I propose the question, let me recognize the presence in the public gallery of students from these institutions: Mariene Primary School, Central Imenti Constituency, Meru County; Thara Secondary School, Muranga South Constituency, Muranga County. They are welcome to observe the proceedings of the House. Honorable members, I'm hoping that the members followed what the move of this motion has explained. But nevertheless, whether you followed or not, let me propose the question, as that is my duty. That notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 227, subsection 2, relating to Committee of Petitions, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the public petition before the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs regarding funding of the lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer interests, in brackets LGBTQI, agenda by foreign organizations in Kenya by a further period of 90 days with effect from August 20th, 2019. Leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, this extension I oppose. Mr. Speaker, each one of us, the 349 of us, swore either by the Bible or the Quran. What is before this House contradicts the teaching of those two holy books. And, Mr. Speaker, I am contributing. So, Mr. Speaker, I oppose the extension. Well, we should not extend time. If it is going to die, let it die. This House has no moral authority to discuss something that is contrary to the scriptures and the Constitution. It's also against the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, this matter, I oppose, and I ask the House that we oppose the extension, and it dies.
Honour members, I think, honour members, the Honourable Jennifer Shamala, rising on a point of order, but it is important also to get the gist of what is in this. It's not so much the reference of the bodies, but the petition is about, the petition was about the funding of those groups by foreign organizations. The Honourable Shamala. Dead on arrival.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The petition that was tabled on the floor of this House was indeed to question the fact that how is it in a country that recognizes the Almighty and the supremacy of this Constitution will then push an agenda through the courts for the registration of lesbian, gays, and whatever. My question, if you would listen, the petition that I presented before the Justice Legal Affairs Committee, Honorable Speaker, was that the committee do investigate through the organizations that register societies, that how much money is being poured into this country to promote the agenda for gays, lesbians, etc. And why is it that we want to know? Why is it that we want to know? I said to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Chair, may I, Mr. Speaker, I said to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, in whose interest is it to push the lesbian, transgender, gay agenda in this country, and why? And I ask this question because we are a country in which we uphold the Constitution, which recognizes a spiritual being. Now, is it that they want to bring down the populations of our countries, starting with Kenya and with Africa? I state this because there is a political scientist called Dr. Hans Morgenthau, and when he defines the power of nations, powers of nations are defined by area, by populations, and by resources. If you look at a country like China today, it is considered a superpower because of its population. Who is it and why is it that funding is being poured into this country to push the lesbian and gay agenda?
Honour members, you see the problem is you must appreciate, understand the petition, the nature of the petition. The petition is questioning why foreign bodies are pouring money into these groups in this Kenya, in this country, and why any organization, any government bodies are accepting to register such bodies, then from which they attract funding. No. Honorable Cheptumo, you are the mover of the motion. Allow others, because you know you had the opportunity to explain this, you did not. Now it is Honorable Shamala who is explaining what you are looking for. Honorable John Bandi.
Mr. Speaker, I think many of us actually understand what this petition was all about, and we sympathize that this petition should, the matters that the petitioners are canvassing are weighty. But Mr. Speaker, what we are also saying, those of us who are opposed to even discussing this issue here, is what if someone brings a petition to discuss whether God created me? As a Christian, I don't even want to entertain that discussion. So if the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee wants to go and investigate who is funding that, they should go and do it. But as Christians, as a God-abiding people who respect God, we don't even want to entertain the issue of discussing this in the House, and let whoever wants to take. By the way, our rules are very clear. You can talk to the departmental committee to go and do it outside our involvement. As a Christian and a professed Seventh-day Adventist, I don't want to sit here and listen to discussion about lesbianism, gay, those things. Take them to that committee and discuss them there. Therefore, I don't want to extend. You know, when you extend time to discuss something you don't want, it's like in a way you are saying that that is something so important. We cannot allow this House to extend the discussion about something that is satanic, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I reject and I oppose any extension, any spending of public resources in discussing gay matters. That is something that I cannot support. It is satanic, it is devilish, and those who want to discuss it on your own, not with the approval of this House. Thank you, Mr.
Honourable members, I can say, Honourable Ishongwa.
Honourable Speaker, I thought, Honourable Speaker, is only fair that we listen to each other. And I've taken time to listen to Honourable Shamala. And I appreciate what the position taken by the Leader of Majority and the Leader of Minority. However, Honourable Speaker, I take exception to what the Leader of Minority is saying, that indeed you cannot discuss this matter. And I want to agree with him. As a Christian, I would not even want to be in a forum where this matter is being discussed. However, the question, Honourable Speaker, being put to you is whether this petition first was rightly before this House. And the moment you allowed the petition to be considered by a committee of this House, the committee has then come to seek for extra time to consider the work that was already given by this House. I think we would be very unfair to Honourable Shamala if she was the one who brought the petition, or even to the committee, and to the Kenyan public having already expended public funds. Having expended public funds to consider this petition, to now kill it at this stage, I think it's only fair we allow the committee to have time to consider the matter, and they give us a report to address the very pertinent issues, especially of funding. Otherwise, if we do not allow the committee and kill it at this stage, in essence, we'll be saying one thing with our mouths and saying a different thing from the other corner of the mouth, because if these gays and lesbians and whatever else they are called are being funded by certain people here, and we have forces here that do not want us to know who are these who are funding them, why are they funding them, I think it's only right that we allow the committee to finish its work, give us a report, then this House has a mandate to decide whether we can be able to stop the funding, whether we can ban them, or whatever we can do is up to us to decide once a report is tabled. But before a report is tabled, Honourable Speaker, I think it's very unfair to just shout here and not listen to each other. Let us reason. Let us be a House where we listen to each other and reason with each other, not shouting at each other. Honourable Speaker, thank you.
Honourable Abdul Samad.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think the mood of the whole House is that this is something that is totally wrong. It is something ungodly, something unconstitutional as well. And I think the ruling, Mr. Speaker, that you need to give is whether it is in order for this House to be able to discuss a matter that is unconstitutional, because the petition that is being brought forward simply says that we want to find out who is the one that is funding these people. Question is whether this very House is at liberty to actually go ahead and start discussing issues that are constitutional. And I think, Speaker, you will need to give a judgment on that particular issue so that we can be able to know the way forward. But I'm glad the voice of the people in this country in totality are in agreement that this is something that we should not even be talking about at all.
No, honor members, I think also to be fair to one another, you need to familiarize yourselves with the provisions of the Constitution, and more particularly Article 119, that any Kenyan may petition Parliament to consider any matter that is within its authority. So indeed, it is within the authority of Parliament to even stop any foreign bodies from funding any such organizations. So this petition was approved by myself because it raised issues that, if found to be correct or to be factual, then it is within the authority of this House to issue directives to whomever it is that is allowing this to happen in the country, and take whatever other action that the House may deem fit. So it is not a matter that is unconstitutional. And then on the second limb, to respond to the Honorable Abdul Swamad, I do not have to issue any ruling, fortunately, again, based on the Constitution, that actually have no vote. The matter is brought to you so that you can make a decision one way or other. It is, you decide whether you want to extend the time that has been sought to consider these matters, or you do not. So really, I don't have myself to make any determination on this matter. Now, how many? But on this matter, this is a simple matter. It's a simple matter of decision. Do you extend the time or do you not? Yes or no, members? Including the member who is honor members. We can save time on this one because it's a procedural issue. You have done this severally to decide whether to extend the time for our committee to continue considering a matter, particularly a petition. And therefore, I think everybody should pay attention. As I put the question that, notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 227, subsection 2, relating to Committee of Petitions, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the public petition before the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs regarding funding of the lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer interests, in the brackets LGBTQI, agenda by foreign organizations in Kenya by a further period of 90 days with effect from 20th August 2019. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? No. The nays have it. The nays have it. The nays have it. The nays have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report
So the net effect, honor members, the net effect of your decision is, if the period of 60 days has expired from the date that the petition was committed to the committee, then the business is dead and is no longer available to the committee to consider. That's the net effect. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report on the Committee of the Whole House on the Senate amendments to the Copyright Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2017. Question to be put.
Order again, order members. Order. The member for Nairobi, please. Let me just put the order members. Order. Member for Limuru. Member for Nairobi, be in the house, please. Honor members, debate on this motion was concluded yesterday, and what remained was the question to be put, which I hereby do, that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Senate amendments to the Copyright Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2017. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Senate amendments to the County Government Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2018, question to be put.
Order, members, order. Please, just look at the order paper so that you know what it is that we are doing. Because all the next two is just questions to be put. Again, you conclude a debate on this, and I put the question. That this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Senate amendments to the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2018. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. Next.
Order number 11, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2019, second reading, question to be put.
Very well, honourable members, again you debated this, and what remains for me to put the question. Honourable Barire, the member for, please, let's be in the House for some time. You know you are a whip, you are supposed to be familiar with this. And not just a whip, you are a long-serving member. Honourable members, I put the question, which is that the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2019, be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. One more, honourable members.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Order number 12, motion, report on the Public Finance Management Biashara Kenya Fund Regulations 2019 and 3 other related sets of regulations, question to be put.
I put the question, which is that this House adopts a report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Public Finance Management, Biashara Kenya Fund, Regulations 2019, in brackets legal notice number 78 of 2019, the Public Finance Management, Wezo Fund, Revocation Regulations 2019, legal notice number 79 of 2019, the Public Finance Management Women Enterprise Fund, Revocation Regulation 2019, legal notice number 80 of 2019, and the Public Finance Management, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, Revocation Regulations, legal notice number 81 of 2019, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 18 of the Statutory Instruments Act of 2013, and standing order number 210, subsection 4, paragraph B, annuls in entirety, A, the Public Finance Management Biashara Kenya Fund Regulations, 2, the Public Finance Management Wezo Fund Revocation Regulations, legal notice 79 of 2019, C, the Public Finance Management Women Enterprise Fund Revocation Regulations, legal notice number 80 of 2019, and D, the Public Finance Management, Youth Enterprise Development Fund Revocation Regulations, legal notice number 81 of 2019. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. Next order. Now I think those who want to move around, they can now do so.
Order number 13, motion, mediated version of the Division of Revenue number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019.
The chairman of the Mediation Committee. Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, 2019.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that we do consider the motion for the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. Honorable Speaker, if you may protect me from the loud consultations led by the Leader of Majority. They are too distracting. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 150, this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue number 2, Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, September 11th, 2019, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly number 59 of 2019. Honorable Speaker, the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, Honorable Speaker, and the report that I tabled yesterday details what the committee of 18 members with 9 members from this House and 9 members from the Senate settled on. And Honorable Speaker, members will appreciate that this has been a very long period of mediation from the first Division of Revenue Bill, whose mediation process collapsed, Honorable Speaker, before we embarked on a new mediation process following the republication of the second Division of Revenue Bill, with an increment from the initial 310 billion to a new figure of 316.5 billion. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, the figure of 316.5 billion is just the shareable revenue between the two levels of government, between the national and the county governments, but does not constitute all the amounts that are to go to our county governments. And Honorable Speaker, if members would peruse through the bill, and even for the benefit of the entire country, Honorable Speaker, in total, besides the 316.5 billion that is going to as a county equitable share, we have conditional grants and other conditional allocations that constitute in total a figure of 378 billion, 485 million, 91,894 shillings. This, Honorable Speaker, includes the urban support program, the program for water and sanitation development, under or rather abbreviated as WSDP. It also includes the 6.2 billion that in the earlier bill that had gone to the Senate that had been removed by the honorable senators. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to thank the senators for having taken a position of leadership and patriotism in accepting to agree to the shareable share of 316.5. And Honorable Speaker, as I said in the mediation committee, it was not a process where we were to flex muscles and there be winners and losers. That, Honorable Speaker, we are all winners, and the Kenyan nation and our county governments and the devolved system of government is a winner in this. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to, in a very special way, thank the members of the committee, led by Senator, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee in the Senate, Honorable Engineer Mahmood, and the other 8 senators who actively participated in the mediation process, even as I thank the honorable members led by the Leader of Minority and the Leader of Majority, and the other 7 members who were in the mediation committee. Honorable Speaker, as I mentioned, all these conditional allocations plus the shareable revenue, including the 6.2 billion shillings for the leasing of medical equipment, which has since been restated, constitute a total figure of 378.4 billion. And therefore, even as we speak about the amount of money that is going to the counties, we should bear in mind that it's not just a 316 or 40 shareable revenue, but a total of 378 billion. So that, honorable senators, even there's a whole governors to account, and the honorable members of the county assemblies in the county governments, county assemblies, Honorable Speaker, may know the kind of money that they ought to oversight that is being utilized by governors in the county governments. Honorable Speaker, we did agree in the mediation committee, as I mentioned, on all these figures, the 6.2 billion that had been removed on leasing of medical equipment, that was reinstated. We agreed, and senators agreed to step down from their earlier demand of 335 billion to 316.5 in terms of shareable revenue. Honorable Speaker, there was also an element under the Water Tower Protection and Climate Change Mitigation and Adoption Program that had been allocated 395 million. Something, Honorable Speaker, that is worth noting, this was not part of the mediation, the items that were subject to mediation. But the National Treasury did indicate through a letter that they had since found an additional 495 million, and we were able to increase that amount to 880 million shillings from the initial allocated amount of 395 million. Honorable Speaker, it is worth noting, Honorable Speaker, that yesterday, as I tabled this report and the mediated version of the bill, I did notice that, Honorable Speaker, the version of the bill that was being tabled in the other house, in the Senate, Honorable Speaker, had a small element that did not agree with what we had agreed in the committee. And Honorable Speaker, I do not know how, I've never been to the other house, so I do not know how they work. But you know, Honorable Speaker, since the 11th Parliament, I have been a stickler to rules and procedures. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, when I noticed that one of the items is on the commencement date of this bill, Honorable Speaker, a matter that had been canvassed and agreed on in the mediation committee, when I noticed that the bill that was tabled in the Senate had a different commencement date from what was agreed, I did contact the chairman, who was my vice chair, Honorable Speaker, and we could not agree as to his basis of altering the bill in terms of the commencement date, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, for me, as I said, being a stickler of rules and procedures, Honorable Speaker, when the matter came up, and I have had opportunity to discuss this with a number of the senators, this is a matter that was raised in the meeting, in the last meeting, mediation meeting yesterday morning, Honorable Speaker. And I even took liberty, Honorable Speaker, to get a copy of the Hansard, because the committee meeting was covered by Hansard, Honorable Speaker. And from the printout of the transcribed Hansard proceedings yesterday, Honorable Speaker, you will notice, and I beg to be able to table this, Honorable Speaker, because it is important. I will be able, I'll be tabling this, Honorable Speaker, but I wanted to point out to the point at which the issue was raised, Honorable Speaker, and if you indulge me, I want to read straight from the Hansard, Honorable Speaker, on page 7 of this document that I'm holding, where the chairman, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, said, honorable members, we have amendments made on the wording by Senator Sakaja. We also have the amendment on the commencement date in clause 1. That is clause 1 of the bill, Honorable Speaker. And it's important to realize, Honorable Speaker, that as much as we took liberty to even table a report, what is required by our own standing orders is to table a mediated version of the bill. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, we pointed out that there was an amendment to clause 1 of the bill, so that we would agree on what to amend in mediation so that it's captured in the mediated version of the bill. And it goes on to say, and I read, that this act may be cited as a Division of Revenue Act 2019. We amend that to read, and shall be deemed to come into force on 1st of July 2019. Honorable Speaker, on page 2 of the bill, short title, we amend that to read short title and commencement date because of the commencement date of the bill. The legal department advised that we add and shall have been deemed to come into force on 1st July. I'm just reading what was unanswered. The legal officer, please go ahead to explain the justification. Honorable Speaker, That is what happened. And the legal officer answered that, Chair, we should have a commencement date in an act of parliament. This is in tandem with Article 116 of the Constitution, and that is why we are introducing an amendment to Clause 1. That was the legal officer explaining the genesis of that amendment. The Vice Chair, Honorable Speaker, who is Senator Mahmoud, said this: going forward, do you think it is necessary to have that every time? The legal officer said yes. Honorable members, you will recall that in the bill that was passed by the National Assembly, we had amended to read upon publication. The presumption was that the bill was going to pass before 1st July, but it has now been passed beyond 1st of July. And I think, Honorable Speaker, it's rather common sense. To that, Honorable Speaker, the Vice Chair, who has then gone and tabled another bill in the House, in the Senate, with a different commencement date, and I don't know how it was altered outside of the mediation committee meetings, said okay. And he was saying okay to the explanation by the legal officer on why the justification for the amendment, Honorable Speaker. I'm saying this, Honorable Speaker, because it is important. As I said, we should be a house of rules and procedures, and I want to believe even the Senate is similarly a house that should be guided by rules and procedures. Any committee proceedings, Honorable Speaker, and deliberations in committee, even myself as chair, I cannot alter any decision of a committee unless I reconvene the committee and alter anything that I may want to alter. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm lost on how the Senate was able to amend or rather alter that commencement date on the bill and table in their house a bill that has a different date from the bill that we agreed. And Honorable Speaker, as I said, and I will table this, a copy of this Hansard, which I have also shared with the honorable senators who are in the committee, and the Speaker to the other House, Honorable Speaker, because it's important, Honorable Speaker, that we also respect our committees. The Mediation Committee, Honorable Speaker, has a very short period to tackle the issues that are given to them to mediate. And once we are done with mediation, Honorable Speaker, I think the life of that committee ends with the end of the mediation process. How we are able to go and alter things after even the death or apparent death of that committee, or the term of that committee has come to an end, is beyond my understanding, Honorable Speaker. And as a member who is a stickler to rules and procedures, I said it is important that I raise this matter so that even as we pass this bill, Honorable Speaker, this mediated version, we be cognizant of that fact that the bill in the other house has that slight alteration that to me is unprocedural, is illegal, and uncalled for. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to beg, and I know they finished with this bill yesterday, I want to beg through you, Honorable Speaker, two things. One, that you may be in a position to speak to the leadership in the other house, probably to consider recommittal of that particular clause 1 to be in line with what has been done here. Two, Honorable Speaker, is to address you now as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission. When the legal officer who raised this issue and who made this explanation did so, the legal officer who advised the chair in the Senate was seated in that meeting. She never raised any objection. She never said anything. Well, the legal officer from the National Assembly explained the genesis of this amendment. It was only until after the meeting of a lunch, our Honorable Speaker, when the chair called me, the chair from the other house, who was my vice chair, and told me that he's being advised by the legal officer, their legal officer, that that date should remain in the version that they have now adopted in their house. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to beg of you as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission to have some order and create some order within our staff. Because we cannot have a legal department that has officers serving one committee, advising and some misadvising honorable members, and yet they're all seated in one office. I want to believe so, is the legal team in Parliament, Honorable Speaker, at least should have some sort of order in working together. And I must congratulate the Parliamentary Budget Office, and maybe something that we need to consider as a House, Honorable Speaker, as Parliament, that even the legal departments and all the other departments work like the way the Parliamentary Budget Office works. Because PBO, Honorable Speaker, does not advise this House as a partisan body or as a body that will advise the National Assembly. It is a Parliamentary Budget Office and advises, gives objective advice and counsel to committees in both this House and the Senate. And the advice they will give us is the advice they will give to the senators, and I would expect the same, even of our legal departments in both houses, that the advice that we get should be the same advice they get in the other house. And I know, Honorable Speaker, this is your profession, and lawyers and people of legal minds, you have different interpretations, just like preachers in church will have different interpretations of the Bible, of the same text in the Bible. But I think for the sake of good order and good working relations between the two houses, because again, they'll be creating too many problems for nothing. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move, and I do hope you, in your capacity as Speaker and also as Chair of the Parliamentary Budget, Parliamentary Service Commission, not Budget Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission, you'll be able to address those other issues, and therefore want to ask that the Honorable John Mbadi...
You say you're tabling the copy of the Hanson?
Yes, I will copy, copy of the Hanson.
We need to get... yeah, so you have tabled the Hanson record.
Yes, I have tabled the
proceedings
copy
of the
Hanson.
committee.
And I beg to move and request the Leader of Minority, Honorable John Mbadi, to second.
Honorable Mbadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to second the motion on approval of this mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill. And I just want to start by thanking our team, the 9 members of Parliament, members of the National Assembly who participated in this mediation, together with our colleagues and counterparts in the Senate, also 9 of them, even though towards the tail end we had difficulty even raising quorum from the Senate side, but at least our team was faithfully present. I remember the second last meeting, Mr. Speaker, out of 9 members, 8 of us were present, members of the National Assembly, and senators, only 2 could be available for that meeting. And then the last meeting, out of the 9 members, I think again, we were 8 in attendance. And Mr. Speaker, that shows commitment, devotion, and responsibility to the work that you are given to execute. My take on this matter is that we did a good job in terms of discussing fundamental issues around this matter. Remember, this House passed 310 billion shillings as shareable revenue. The Senate wanted 335 billion shillings. At one point, the Senate came down to 327, and as National Assembly, we decided and agreed to increase the amount to 316 billion shillings before the executive finally had accepted to add another 0.5 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, finally, the reasoning prevailed. This matter has been very controversial. It caught national attention. It went to Supreme Court, although I don't really understand why a matter of budgetary issues, matters of allocating funds, matters of budgeting would find its way to the courts. But, Mr. Speaker, this matter has become so controversial. It is my hope and prayer that going forward, Mr. Speaker, that we will not find ourselves again in this kind of a situation. It was very difficult, Mr. Speaker. Emotions ran high, but finally we agreed on this figure. The other thing that I think we also agreed on was the issue of the medical funds, the medical equipment, the leasing of medical equipment, the 6.2 billion. Mr. Speaker, again, I want to say that whereas we are all in agreement that this matter needs to be looked into, but we could not just stop the funding because really there are some contractual obligations. And this country has entered into some contractual obligations with outsiders, people who are not even from this country. And therefore, this matter needs to be investigated so that value for money is realized. And I think in our proposal, we have recommended a kind of audit and looking into this matter more seriously. The other issue that I wanted also to mention, Mr. Speaker, is that it is not correct to say that we are only allocating 316 billion to counties. There is additional Mr. Speaker, money that comes from the nationally raised revenue. There is additional 13 billion shillings, 13.9 to be exact, which is being given to counties as conditional grant. But besides that, there is even the fuel levy fund, the 8.9 billion shillings, which is again allocated to counties. And on average, each county should get about 192 million shillings. Now, if you look at that compared, because this is 15% of the fuel levy fund, constituencies at the moment, or Kera for that matter, and national government receives only 10%, but the counties are receiving 15% of this fund. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, whereas each constituency is getting 21 million for the roads out of the 10%, the 15% should be able to give on average each constituency about 26 million shillings to be used and spent in the construction of our roads or rather maintenance of our roads. So those are amounts that are outside the 316.5 billion, which is equitable share of revenue. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said. But before I go there, I want to just also add on to what Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah spoke about. Mr. Speaker, I think I want to speak to our colleagues in the Senate. Let us be honest when it comes to matters as important as passing legislation, especially where matters of budgets are concerned. We did agree on a mediated version. And Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is clear under Article 113 that if the mediation committee agrees on a version of the bill, each house shall vote to approve or reject that version of the bill. The version of the bill that is agreed on is what each house needs to vote on. So it is dishonest to take or introduce to either of the house a version of the bill that has not been agreed on at the mediation. And if that is what happened in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, I think it is dishonest and it is not wrong. It is not right. It is wrong. We need to condemn it. I think we agreed, we discussed and agreed amicably, and we left the mediation committee laughing. Yet now what I hear is that the other house changed the version of the bill. I know why, Mr. Speaker. I think the Senate realized that if they had the date of 1st July as the effective date, then that would be killing their case at the Supreme Court on the issue of the case at the courts on the issue of Appropriation Act. But Mr. Speaker, I thought mediation is about give and take. It's about being honest with each other and moving forward. So I really find it really dishonest on part of the Senate. It means that they did not wholeheartedly accept the 316 billion that is going to the counties. And I think that is not correct. But to me, I'm not worried, Mr. Speaker, because, again, this Constitution gave us a solution that if both houses approve the version of the bill proposed by the mediation committee, the Speaker of the National Assembly shall refer the bill to the President within 7 days for assent. So, Mr. Speaker, any other bill that does not contain what we agreed on will not go to the President for assent, because I don't expect you, Mr. Speaker, to be careless enough to take a bill that we didn't agree on, and there is Hansard. I know you are careful enough. You will make sure that the right bill goes to the President for assent and will be assented to. So, Mr. Speaker, to me, I'm not even bothered about asking the Senate to do some other things. I think it is clear in my view that you will take the correct version of the bill that we agreed on. You are the one who will now disappoint me, Mr. Speaker, if you take a wrong version of the bill that we did not agree on. The bill that we agreed on is what we have tabled here. If you have doubt, Mr. Speaker, you can check with the Hansard, and it will help you see the correct version of the bill that that we agreed on. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this is something that I want to speak to. I know I've spoken about it previously, but I still want to talk about it. Mr. Speaker, when we were discussing this bill at the mediation, and so many Kenyans have discussed this even in the media and every other place, about whether we are just being mean to our counties. I agree that counties need more money beyond even the 378 billion that they are getting. But we must also agree that all government departments ministries, agencies, state agencies need more money. But we don't have that money. The money is not enough. In fact, I said here yesterday, Mr. Speaker, that there was this argument that Commission of Revenue Allocation did a professional, thorough research that it is a National Assembly that is disagreeing with a professional body that has done research and has come up with a figure that is foolproof, figure that makes a lot of sense, and that is the 335 billion. But Mr. Speaker, do you know what Commission on Revenue Allocation did? What they did was to take what they call average inflation rate for the past 3 years at 6.5% and loaded that inflation rate onto the figure we gave last year of 314. And they came up with 335. That is something which even if you give my standard 4 kid can do that. She can just calculate 6.5% of 314 and add on to 314. Is that a figure that is so researched that National Assembly, people who have knowledge like Badi in finance, I cannot even interrogate? That is demeaning my intellectual capacity, Mr. Speaker. We have the right to look at the budget in totality and the amounts. And this is what I want to say as I wind up. Then, Mr. Speaker, the projected revenue, and I've said it, that this thinking that we have so much money in this country, we are living a lie, Mr. Speaker. We don't have money in this country. We are over budgeting. And that is something that as a House, which has the responsibility of looking at the budget, we must start addressing. And we must address seriously, because Kenyans have been complaining to us. They have been blaming us that we are the House that approves a budget that is so heavy that we cannot finance. We are projecting to collect a total of 1,877 billion in terms of ordinary revenue. Out of that amount, Mr. Speaker, there is the debt repayment, the actual debt repayment, if you leave out the debt rollover, of 585 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, if you add that to the payment that you will give to constitutional office holders, the payment that we give to pensions, which we call the CFS, 109 billion, and you add that to the money that goes to the commissions, the constitutional commissions, including TSE, which takes 252 billion, you add 261 billion, and you add to that money that goes to Parliament, Judiciary, and other independent offices like the DPP, Auditor General, and Controller of Budget, which is 73 billion. Add that to 12 billion that goes to Equalization Fund and contingency funds, and you end up with 1,041 billion. Then, out of the projection, which is just a projection, you have only 506 billion left. If you take 330 billion, which you are giving counties as shareable revenue and conditional grants coming from the national government kitty, it comes to you are only left with a figure, a figure of 506 billion shillings. And Mr. Speaker, the recurrent expenditure of all ministries, if you start from the internal security, the police, you come to the office of the president, 8 billion, you add to NIS, 37 billion, the total amount of recurrent expenditure in this country, including defense, other ministries, it is over 700 billion shillings. Therefore, it means we are borrowing money even to cover our recurrent expenditure. And then as a country, we sit somewhere, we chest thumb, we start holding each other at ransom and insisting that every place that needs more money must be given. It is not a must even in our domestic expenditure, that where any place that needs money in your household requirement, you will always fund it. Sometimes you cut the budget to the size, to your size. It's like you're someone who is cutting a cloth. So as a country, I think we need to hold conversation with each other. And Treasury has let us down on this, big time. We are projecting and over-budgeting and pretending that we can cover our budget. We end up borrowing more money, and we end up paying more interest, and the cycle continues, and the discussion is, national government, you are spending so much, why are you being mean to counties? And that money is not there. I would say, as I sit down, Mr. Speaker, that what I've realized in this country from these figures is that there is no money from our internally generated revenue that we spend on development. unless there's money that goes to the counties. Why? Because we are overburdened with the recurrent expenditure. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to just plead with all of us who are responsible as accounting officers, let us start being careful about our expenditure and talk to the counties. We give you money. We are giving money from fuel levy fund, 8.9 billion, to maintain our roads, to just put maram on these roads. They are not even doing it. These MPs would tell you our rural roads which get marammed are only being marammed from Kera money that is coming from the national government. The county money, we don't even know where it goes to, Mr. Speaker. What is wrong with our governors? Who has bewitched this country? Is it that we are having economic saboteurs as governors? Or what is the problem? Why are they making this country look very bad? Mr. Speaker, I said that was my last word, but I wanted also to say this. When first we started with the devolution in 2013, it was very popular. In fact, the whole country even wanted CDF to go. They were saying CDF has lost relevance. We are now in devolved system. But today, one of the most popular funds in this country is CDF. Why? Because people are now comparing it with the devolved units. They are not performing. Look, people have started talking about taking back health to the national government. Why is that so? It is because our counties are not doing what they are supposed to do. Therefore, I want to plead with our governors. Please, for heaven's sake, even before this year comes, can't you even ask your conscience to agree with you or disagree with you if what you are doing is good even in the eyes of God? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Supposed to do that. Anyhow, Honorable John Bandi, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Clause 2 of the Constitution, and standing under number 150, this House adopts a report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, September 11, 2019, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. And now, members, before I allow debate, allow me to also recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of pupils from Karende Primary School, Mukoroine constituency, Nyeri County. You are welcome. Thank you. Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my two colleagues have, the chair and the leader of minority have spoken. But just to add, I really want to thank the members of the mediation team, mainly from the National Assembly. Honorable Cecily Mbarire, Honorable Kimani Chungwa was our chair, Honorable Makali Mulu, Honorable Mishi Mboko, Honorable Sonkok, Honorable Kimunya, and Honorable John Bandi, and Honorable Junet Mohammed for a job well done. Speaker, we need to make it very clear. This mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill seeks to provide a total allocation of 378.1 billion for the 47 counties to share. So this story of 316.5, 327 is not here or there. So we are giving this afternoon to counties 378 billion. And for those who want to listen to me, 316.5 is the equitable share. The other 61.9 billion is what we call the conditional allocation, both from donors and from the national government. So the 8.9 billion, the 2 billion for the polytechnics, the money for the free maternity that was introduced under President Uhuru Kenyatta, all these totaling is 19.3 billion being given to counties. And even the road maintenance, and Kenyans must ask themselves, which road is maintained by the county government based on the 8.9 billion we are allocating? Which road is being done by Kenha? Which road is being done by Kura? Which road is being done by Kera? Which road is being done by the members of parliament through the Kera fund? So, Mr. Speaker, There's a lot of overlapping. So Kenyans must ask value for their money. We can't allocate 378 billion, and Mr. Speaker, as Honorable Bandi said, devolution is becoming very unpopular in our country. Devolution was very popular. It was very popular. A lot of people, including myself, voted for the 2010 Constitution because of devolution. Mr. Speaker, we need to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation. We need to go back to Bomas, and we need to have a national conversation and ask ourselves the achievement, the gains of devolution. Have we achieved? And there are people out there who say we are killing devolution. The Speaker, budget is a time bound. And this is reflected in the Constitution. The Constitution, in all its articles on the budget-making process, has created timelines. When the budget policy statement is supposed to be introduced, when the committee is supposed to table its report, when the estimates of revenue and expenditure are to be brought to the House, how long would the departmental committee undertake? When do we expect the minister to read the budget highlights? When do we deal with the finance bill? When do we deal with the division of revenue bill? So these timelines are well documented in the Constitution and the PFM Act of 2012. And if you read Article 218, Mr. Speaker, it provides that the division of revenue bill will be introduced in Parliament at least 2 months before the end of every financial year. It's very, very critical. It says 2 months. So, Mr. Speaker, the Senate or the National Assembly cannot have the luxury to play around. Today, Mr. Speaker, why do I say so? Today is September 12th, 2019. The first quarter of this financial year is almost over, and we are still discussing division of revenue bill. We are yet to conclude and even discuss the county allocation of revenue law. The PFM, Mr. Speaker, needs to be reviewed so that all these timelines which are provided for on budget-making process are taken into consideration. So that no house, no individual, no entity, no agency in government or in power to the Hansard room. Not even seeing the written, you can hear their voices. And the Speaker, you remember even last year when we had that VAT matter, where people were confusing that Honorable Saipan made a different pronouncement. You went to the Hansard, you listened to. So right now, if Honorable Baya wants to listen to what he said 2 months ago, he will both get it written, scripted, and he will hear his voice. So Speaker, the Hansard is here of yesterday's deliberation. And it is the legal officer who said, Mr. Chairman, we should have a commencement date in any act of parliament. This is in tandem with Article 116 of the Constitution. And that is why we are introducing an amendment to Clause 1. That is what the legal officer said. Honorable Vice Chair and the Chairman of Finance in the Senate, Honorable Senator Mahmoud, the Speaker is a man I respect, we served with him since the 10th Parliament, said we did not have a commencement date on the original bill before. Then the legal officer said no. The Vice Chair said, then going forward, do you think it is necessary to have that every time? The legal officer now says, yes, honorable members. You recall that the bill that was passed by the National Assembly, we amended and read upon publication. The presumption was that the bill was going to pass before 1st of July, and now we have passed it beyond 1st of July. Then the senator himself, the vice chair, said, okay, can we proceed, put it. This is the answer. And the Speaker of the Senate must protect the integrity of the Senate. And he must sign alongside you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have the shenanigans of the Senate in making sure that they avoid procedure. And right now, and you know, Mr. Speaker, let me call a spade a spade. Those senators are not very intelligent. And I want them to hear me today. Because they know and they should have been intelligent yesterday when they were in the mediation. They should have rejected and raised an objection. Yesterday they agreed to the commencement date to be 1st of July. They should have insisted on commencement date upon assent. But they agreed with the 1st of July. It's on record. Now, when they came out, they realized that their case in challenging the appropriation bill is dead on arrival before the court of law. And they were cheated by their legal officers. And I really want to thank the Budget Office. And I want to thank the legal officers from the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So they have realized the shenanigans they were doing in court will not proceed on the appropriation bill with this amendment. And I always tell them, the National Assembly is 349, but there are a lot of intelligent people. We knew what we were doing. We knew what we were doing. So they have no choice. Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge the Speaker of the Senate. He has no choice. After we finish this bill, he has no choice. He must sign. Mr. Speaker, before I finish, before I conclude, as a member of the mediation, the text in clause 1 is indeed as published in the order paper, and that was the version agreed on the mediation committee. But Mr. Speaker, I want to invite you as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission to severely reprimand staff at whatever level, staff of this parliament at whatever level in either house of parliament, who have caused alteration in this report. He must, Mr. Speaker, that staff must be indicted. You are the chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission. This is a gross misconduct. That officer who advised the Senate, who altered the report and properly misled part of the membership of the Senate on the content of this report must be dealt with. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. I saw it in the other mediation where the legal counsel for the Senate gives a view. And you know, the chairman of budget was saying, even in the Bible, there are different interpretations. That is wrong. In the Quran, there is only one interpretation. The sheikh who is in Mecca and the one who is in the far end in my constituency will interpret a verse the way it is. Even in the Bible. And you know, of late, he has been tanga-tanga, so he has not gone to church. So you can't say the Bible can be interpreted by different people differently. Am I right? And I'm sure the Christian will agree with me that the Bible can be interpreted by Ichungwa the way he wants, by Honorable Wamalwa the way he wants. No. The Quran interpretation is the one left by Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So do not play around with the holy books. Play around with the manifesto of Tanga-Tanga, which in one way I'm also part of it. Mr. Speaker, as members, Mr. Speaker, as members of both houses, we can play politics. As members, we can play politics, but the staff of parliament cannot play politics. They cannot side with any member. They must be diligent to the Constitution and the principles governing as a staff of parliament. You must advise me. Mr. Speaker, my office is one of the offices in this house that are advised by staff of the National Assembly, from the clerk to the legal, to budget, to legislation. And I always tell them, and they always advise me according to their professional undertaking. So, Speaker, we must deal with that. And the Speaker, once we finish, for the counties to get money, the Speaker, you take this bill to the President for assent. And next week, I am told they have gone to Kitui. The Senate is going to Kitui. I don't know what is special in Kitui. And Mr. Speaker, we must, if you allow me 1 minute. Speaker, you know, I have seen some governors who are lecturing us about corruption. There are some female governors who are ministers, who their history are known. They are telling us, oh, we must support the war against corruption. So, Speaker, shame on them. Shame on them. You know, I have realized, and I'm sure the ladies will respect me, sometimes when we give key positions to ladies, they become terrible. So there are some female governors who are now lecturing us on corruption. When they were ministers in the 10th Parliament, in the 11th Parliament, in the 11th and 10th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, those ministers were No problem with them. So when I mentioned, the Speaker, allow me 1 minute. You know, when we talk about men don't jump. So there's no point of order. There are female governors who their history is known. And Mr. Speaker, I agree, governors must be held to account. They must be held to account by the council. The DPP must be held to account to everybody in the national, in county governments. And those who are making a lot of noise, like Alfred Mutua, those are those who are more corrupt. He must be dealt with. He is talking of Chama Cha, yeah. Governors, you don't lecture me and Honorable Onyonka and Honorable Wamalwa when we know your history. So everybody to carry his cross when it comes to corruption. And Alfred Mutua should be the first one to be dealt with. I beg to support.
Honorable Wamalwa. Wahungu Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this division of revenue, the mediated version. Mr. Speaker, we have the three arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and judiciary. Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate on a matter of legislation, you find our colleagues decided to go to court. Mr. Speaker, in the principle of separation of powers, we know very well, Mr. Speaker, Parliament is there to legislate. The judiciary is there, Mr. Speaker, for purposes of interpretation. And the executive, Mr. Speaker, it is there for purposes of implementation. It was very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, when I saw colleagues from the other house, the senators, moving to court on a matter that the court doesn't have any jurisdiction. Because this house, it is there to legislate. The courts are there to interpret. And I want to thank the Chief Justice, the advice he gave, that matters of revenue go back to the Parliament. I really salute him for that. Mr. Speaker, we need to revisit that Supreme Court advisory. Being a scholar, Mr. Speaker, and being a researcher, I had to go and read that judgment. And I read clearly the dissenting views of Justice Njoki Ndung'u. I wish you had an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to go and look at that judgment. And because this division of revenue has created problems, and we know very well, Mr. Speaker, this House can debate on a matter that is concerned to the people. So I don't know whether there's going to be any way that the Supreme Court should revisit that judgment. Because when I read Justice Njoki Ndung'u's views, I really agreed with that lady, Mr. Speaker. It was very, very unfortunate, and that's why we're having this confusion when it comes to matters of division of revenue. And it's the highest time, Mr. Speaker, we should get a lasting solution so that counties cannot be into problems again. Mr. Speaker, the senators were not being honest. When the National Assembly determined that 310, the county shareable revenue, they were 335. And there was some informal negotiation which had been headed up by the Deputy President. They came down, Mr. Speaker, to 326 billion. Then later on, I don't know what happened, they decided to go back to 335. This is to show that our colleagues from the other side, Mr. Speaker, were not being honest. When it comes to negotiation, Mr. Speaker, it is indeed important that the parties involved, they must be honest. And you must go and negotiate with the objective of win-win. I was surprised some of the senators who are going to negotiate that they are going to look at the other colleagues up in their eyes. It was like something that was going to a show off. When you are going to negotiate, you must be flexible. That is one of the critical principles in negotiation. When you're going to negotiate, it must be a win-win. But the moment you go into negotiation,
the duties bestowed upon us by the Constitution, we would also wish, as members of the National Assembly and the Senate, to make it clear so that everybody can know his or her role before indulging in all these messes which we are seeing now. Mr. Speaker, I would also wish to support my colleagues, especially on the issues of use or misuse of these monies, which are actually sent to the counties, so that when we're arguing over how much money we are supposed to send to the counties, And as you have said, the Constitution is clear on who is supposed to share this money horizontally and the other way around. It is the National Assembly which is supposed to share the money between the national and the county governments. And the function of the Senate is to share the money among the counties. So this argument sometimes which is being brought that they should be involved in the total sharing of money or between the national and the county government should not arise, Mr. Speaker. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is a question of members actually questioning the use or misuse of money sent to the counties. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, we also come from these counties, and sometimes we look at how this money are not spent properly, of which sometimes we also question the MCAs and the senators who are supposed to be oversighting the use of these monies which are sent to the counties. I think it is high time the senators and the MCAs tell this country how much money goes to development, and they should actually have made a law that will force the governors to make a certain amount of money or a certain percentage of money go to development, so that not so much money will just go for recurrent expenditure, and at the end of the year, there is no money used for development. Mr. Speaker, that is a function of the MCAs and that is a function of the senators. But our function also as members of the National Assembly, so that we should not be actually looking at the money sent to the counties alone. As members of this House, Mr. Speaker, we should also be looking at the money that is left at the national level. We should also be scrutinizing properly, so that at the end of it, we should not be complaining in this House and begging the government or the executive to be allocating money on A, B, C, D. Like the other time, Mr. Speaker, members of this House were complaining on health issues, how most of the hospitals are almost collapsing, especially the referral hospitals. How would you complain, and you are the people who make the budget? You are the people who should allocate money specifically to those particular facilities. And at the end of it, you should bring us a report that the money which was allocated to Kenyatta National Hospital, for example, was not used properly. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it is time also, as members of the National Assembly, look at the budget, the money that we normally allocate to the national function. Is it normally used properly? How much money do we leave with the national government? How much money do we give to the executive? And how much is spent? Do we see anything tangible in the villages which come from the national? So that we just don't complain to the counties. And yet also the national government is not using money properly. The roads I see, Mr. Speaker, which are tarmac roads, were done by Chinese. These were money loaned from the Chinese government. I would also wish to know, we normally locate around 200 and something billion to infrastructure. Where does this money go? I don't see a road in my constituency. Maybe I see a road which was done by the Chinese or the money loaned from China. Mr. Speaker, I want us to be honest to the nation that there is a lot of money that is being lost, so that even when we are complaining or when we are making these budgets and when we are allocating money to the counties and leaving a certain amount to the national government, we must be prudent as members, as oversight members of this country, to look at those money, how properly they are spent. Mr. Speaker, the last thing, Mr. Speaker, I would wish to mention is that we do not wish members of the Senate to involve malice in their proceedings. Mr. Speaker, like you've said, the Hansard is very clear on what was discussed and what should be discussed and what should be implemented and what should be signed by the President. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to end there by saying I support. Thank you.
Honorable Mutua Barasa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to support this amended version of the Division of Revenue Bill. And as much as we know the role of Commission for Revenue Allocation, Honorable Speaker, it is important for the Commission to understand that it's this House that knows where the government is going to get money. So even as they will want to decide how much money we should send to counties, they must listen to us, because we are the people who understands where the government gets this money from, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is very unfortunate that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya has done things and procedurally not following the procedures, Honorable Speaker. And even if the law says that Senate participates in lawmaking processes, I don't know whether we should provide a framework on how they can participate in making such laws, because the Hansard records are clear on what was agreed upon, and going back and forth and doing their own things, Honorable Speaker, is not good for this country. And I really want to support the sentiments that were made by the leader of a majority party, that the parliamentary staff who actually doctored the report that was agreed upon, they must explain, and action must be taken upon them, Honorable Speaker, because Parliament must be guided within the confines of the law and within the true picture of what transpired during mediation, Honorable Speaker. The Honorable Speaker, I also want to really ask our Senate, our senators, that they have a responsibility to ensure that the money that counties receive are properly spent. They owe this country an explanation on each and every cent that government has given them, Honorable Speaker, because it's very important, and without taking too much time. The mood of the House that we are really approve this bill, I beg to support, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
I said the Honorable Kimunya, but before you say, let me hear what the Honorable Pukose has to say. You have put an intervention.
Honorable Speaker, I'm standing under Standing Order 95. I know this has been, we've debated it before. It went into mediation, and now this is, I know the members are well conversant, and we're all in agreement, especially on issues that have been conversed on this matter. It is something that the country is waiting, Honorable Speaker, and more so the counties, in terms of so that they can get resources and be able to continue. So I request that the mover be called to reply, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Now answer the Honorable Kimunya. What do you wish to say? It's the same thing.
Mr. Speaker, I think I would agree, but just to go on record, because I was part of the mediation committee, and what the leader said and tabled is exactly what we agreed. But there's something that the nation needs to know, that if the mischief the Senate wanted to do, which is changing the effective date, has a major impact on when the counties will get the revenue. They pleaded with us in terms of even fast-tracking the bill so that we can get the CARA, and they said they will even go and do it in Kitui. But if we are going to base the CARA on the DORA, which will be based on a publication date perhaps in October or December, then it means that we will, or even next week, it means that they will not do the CARA, they will not do the CARA next week in Kitui. It will not, they will then be proceeding on their trips abroad, and we will end up delaying the disbursement of funds to the counties who are already starved of money. Besides, applying the county, applying the date as different from 1st of July could also interfere with the funds available. And I think those are some of the things that the public needs to know, that the Senate, in playing its games, is actually putting the counties in jeopardy. And this House must now protect those counties that the devolution, and protect devolution, which Senate has failed miserably to protect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honourable members, the member for the member for Endebess, the Honourable Dr. Robert Pukose, rose in his place and claimed to move under Standing Order number 95 that the mover be called upon to reply. And I put that question. The mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to reply.
Honourable members, before I put the question on this important bill or motion, as I indicated earlier, I need to confirm that the House corrects, which I have confirmed it does. But I also need to make this communication. As you are all aware, honourable members, of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, was tabled yesterday, September 11, 2019, during the afternoon sitting by the chairperson of the Mediation Committee, the Honourable Kimani Ichung'wah, who also serves as the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee of this House. Thereafter, honourable members, while moving the motion for adoption of the report and approval of the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill earlier in this afternoon, the chairperson of the Mediation Committee brought to the attention of the House that his Senate counterparts in the Mediation Committee had tabled on the same day, Wednesday, 11 September 11, 2019, the same report containing a bill that had a slight variance to the version of the bill agreed by the Mediation Committee. Honourable members, the same variance concerns Clause 1 of the Division of Revenue Bill number 2 of 2019 as agreed by the Mediation Committee. The chairperson and part of the members of the Mediation Committee drawn from this House have this afternoon averred that the version of the bill agreed to and proposed by the committee contains Clause 1, which reads as follows. Clause 1. This act may be cited as a Division of Revenue Act 2019 and shall be deemed to have come into force on the 1st of July 2019. Close the quote. According to the chairperson, the same variance emanates from the fact that the version of the bill that was tabled in the Senate ostensibly provides that the commencement date shall be upon publication of the act in the Gazette after assent. Honourable members, following the concerns that have been raised both by the chairperson and the members of the Mediation Committee that have spoken to this bill and other communication made to me, I undertook to verify the matter from the official records available. In this regard, I have since confirmed what transpired in the Mediation Committee from the hands and report of the proceedings of the same committee in the meeting that adopted the agreed version of the Division of Revenue Bill that they were tasked to propose to the Houses. Indeed, I have since confirmed also that as per the hands and record of the same meeting of the committee, meeting held in the morning of 11th of September 2019, yesterday, Clause 1, providing for commencement, was indeed amended. Honourable members, a few procedural questions do arise from the foregoing, the first of which is whether or not the report of the Mediation Committee was altered. I've indeed confirmed that the annexure to the report of the Mediation Committee was slightly altered with respect to Clause 1 to a version of the bill outside that what was proposed by the Mediation Committee. I've also confirmed from the record of the papers read that the chairperson of the Mediation Committee quashed the alteration and by way of a handwritten text referred to the text as adopted by the said committee. This is authenticated by his signature, which is appended against the correction before tabling the report of the Mediation Committee in the House yesterday afternoon. Honourable members, in the absence of a clear record in the minutes and report of the Mediation Committee with regard to the text of Clause 1 of the bill, as your Speaker, the question before me at the moment is twofold. 1, what avenue remains at the Speaker's disposal to ascertain the correct text of the said clause? 2, what is the correct text of the said clause and what remedy is available at this penultimate stage. Honourable members, as you are without doubt aware, the Hansen report, as defined by Askin May and as applied in other Commonwealth jurisdictions, is the official record of the proceedings of the House in either plenary or in its committee sittings, mediation committee included. As such, the Hansen is a vital component of parliamentary record and is a sacrosanct document whose sanctity and inviolability ought to be continuously guarded and upheld at all times. Secondly, honourable members, does the version of the Division of Revenue Bill 2019 before this House reflect what was agreed by the Mediation Committee and proposed to the Houses of Parliament in furtherance to the provisions of Article 113, Clause 2 of the Constitution? Based on the Hansen record of the meeting of the Mediation Committee, and which is available for perusal and verification by any member or person, as laid by the chairperson of the committee when moving the motion this afternoon, it is clear that the bill before us today is the correct version that was agreed upon by the Mediation Committee. Honourable members, it is also my considered view that the pertinent issue before me this afternoon is not about which version of Clause 1 stands out as legally superior, but rather which version of Clause 1 was agreed to by the Mediation Committee that the Speaker of the Senate and I appointed to pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Clause 1 of the Constitution. Therefore, honourable members, before I put the question for adoption of the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, and for approval of the same bill, I wish to confirm that the text of Clause 1, according to the correct and authenticated annexure to the report, as well as pages 7 and 8 of the Hansen report, reads as follows. Clause 1. This act may be cited as the Division of Revenue Act 2019 and shall be deemed to have come into force on the 1st of July 2019. I have no doubt, therefore, that this is the correct text as agreed by the Mediation Committee. Indeed, the accurate text of the said clause is accurately captured in the version of the Division of Revenue Bill 2019 published by the Clerk of the National Assembly in notice number 1 in today's under paper. Therefore, that is a copy and true impression of the version of the bill agreed on by the Mediation Committee and proposed to the Houses of Parliament. Finally, honourable members, we have a duty to protect the accuracy of our records and guarantee dependability of those employed to facilitate the work of this institution. In this regard, I call upon all officers facilitating various committees of the House, including mediation committees, to always endeavor to guide members accurately from commencement to conclusion of all stages of committee deliberations and resolutions to guarantee seamless coordination of lawmaking, representation and oversight responsibilities of honourable members. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you, honourable members. With that, honourable members, I put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Clause 2 of the Constitution, and standing under number 150, this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, in brackets number 2, Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, September 11, 2019, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. And will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 14, the petition to County Assembly's Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2018, second reading.
Leader of Majority. No, sorry, this is the Chairman of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. The Chairman, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the Honorable Cheptumo. Honor members, order number 14. Mover not being present. Nobody to move. Nobody to move. Okay, fine. It will be dealt with next week. No problem. Step down. Order number 15. Next order, sorry.
Order number 15, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, second reading.
The Chairman, Departmental Committee on Education and Research.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we deliberated on whether this should be on the order paper because the report is yet to be tabled, and we had indicated that we would like it to be stepped down.
Yes, Leader Majority.
Mr. Speaker, as much as I agree with the Vice Chair, these are part of the bill that I submitted to the Liaison Committee where chairs are taking too long to bring a report. So can you direct the committee that latest by Wednesday, Thursday next week, they table the report?
Very well. Honorable Kimunya, your committee to table the report not later than Wednesday next week. Next order.
Order number 16, the County Government Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2018, second reading.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, this bill, the legal department of the House have raised some constitutional issues, and I'm consulting with the Attorney General so that we agree on the way forward and then write to you whether we amend it, agree to the amendment, or we withdraw the whole bill as it is. So I will ask you to step down until next week, Tuesday.
Very well. Taken out of the order paper. So the next order is a report by the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. The chairman has written to request that it be stood down. The chairman, Jailak, now you are walking in and when we are calling you to move your report, you are nowhere. Very well, you prepare to move it next week. So the Honorable Ali Wario and dedicated is out of the country and would request that the report be stood down, and I granted that request. Next, any other? Well, honour members, time now being, there being no other business, and time being 9 minutes past 5, the House stands adjourned till Tuesday, 17th of September, 2019 at 2:30 p.m.